Welcome to a new episode of Life with Artificials. Today we're going to talk about the ethics in, with, and for artificial intelligence. I have a very special guest coming from Copenhagen University, so I would let Isaac introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Isaac Wagner, and I'm an associate professor of teaching called a studielector in Danish at the University of Copenhagen in the Department of Public Health. And I'm a trained philosopher, trained in the U.S., and I do a lot of work on ethics and theory of science and various philosophical topics, mostly related to health, given my position in the Department of Public Health.
Yeah. Which is definitely also a sector where we should look initially when we're talking about the ethics in AI, right? And for the people watching us from other corners of the world or other countries, in Denmark, we have quite an interesting system, with the public health data, where there is a lot of data collected, considering that we're a very digitalized country. So I suppose that there's a lot of studying to do there. But of course, in the parts of ethics, when we talk like that, it's a lot about philosophy. It's a lot about the history of how we ended up here, what happened in the development of the algorithms of artificial intelligence, of software as such, right, to get to the date. So when I invited you, Isaac, we really looked into the idea of now it is the right timing of discussing how can AI be ethical. And because the health data, it's also the one that we were talking earlier, we have a lot of data that can be trained, that can be used in developing algorithms, but it's at the same time, it is in one of the most sensitive areas of life of a human. Then, of course, the part of ethics comes as a big question. And what I feel like it's important for the audience of Life with Artificials and for people in general is to really understand how the considerations that we have around the ethics, starting from the health sector developments, but spilling over into any sector where AI is developed, right? Because it's the same, guardrails that we have to have in place, be it in the health or be it in, education, or be it in industry or any other sectors in our lives. So cutting this short, why do we need AI to be ethical?
Because AI is going to have, is already having, and will continue to have more so, a big impact on our lives, on our well-being. And when something impacts on our lives and our well-being and our freedom and our interests, ethical issues arise.
Yeah, and I'm looking here, we had a guest talking about artificial nurses, right? So we are talking about actually AI algorithms, on one hand, helping medical staff take decisions, so helping nurses and doctors to take faster decisions in regards to their jobs, have a better understanding of what happens, and maybe there you give us a couple of examples on how Copenhagen University works with this. But on the other hand, as well, we've seen, from generative AI that there exists the potential of hallucination, exists the potential of AI going rogue, trying just to please, or trying, not necessarily taking responsibility, right, for what happens there. So on one hand, comes as a tool that wants to help, and it will help, and there's immense potential for that. And on the other hand, there's also a door towards harming, right? So give us a little bit of an intro, some examples of how did you ended up working with this? What did you see into the research that you're doing? And then let us take it back into, okay, what points did the ethical considerations arise, and how should we, from outside, look around it?
I guess, I've done some stuff on, I was motivated by a lot of the things that you have just mentioned, how AI can do both good and bad. There's the promise of a lot of good, but there are also various concerns. And one area that I initially looked at where AI could be beneficial in healthcare was in radiology
Yeah.
as a kind of what they call in radiology a second reader, a kind of check on the primary radiologist and their diagnostic process. So having an AI doing the same diagnosing an image alongside a radiologist.
Okay, so you have a
And
doctor that is taking an image of a patient, and then you have the AI, which is actually counter checking or fact checking, right? Or double checking
yeah,
the diagnose.
right. And so this seemed to me to be a pretty interesting way in which AI, I mean, of course, AI can be used in healthcare in all sorts of ways, but actually and potentially, but this seemed to be an interesting area of investigation, to me at least, about because there's a shortage of radiologists in the world, a massive shortage. We need them. More and more images are being ordered to be read by radiologists, and we don't have enough radiologists to read them. So X-rays and CT scans and all these images are being ordered more and more, and so we need radiologists to read these things. This is a natural sort of idea that we could use AI to help with this process. We have a shortage of human labor. We have AIs that are very good at visual pattern recognition, and that's essentially what a radiologist is doing. They're looking at an image, a CT scan, an X-ray, an MRI, and they're trying to see what's in the image. Is there a kind of abnormality here? Is there some sort of tumor or whatever? And that's something that AIs can do.
Yeah.
Increasingly better. So it seems like an obvious
and
place
faster,
to look.
Right?
Yeah, faster. That's right. So it's that was an obvious place to look in terms of where AI could be brought in the healthcare sector to really where it could have a lot of added value.
Yeah, we talked about this a lot at the Conference of Business and Science in Brussels in February, where organizations working in the unfunded Global South were just talking how immensely helpful AI is, where you don't have doctors, right? And how this is definitely helping the population.
Yeah. So just in terms of what I mentioned about radiologists, I mean, there's a shortage of radiologists in the global north. I mean, think about how it is in the global south.
Yeah. And not only radiologists, but like a lot of other doctors. Okay, so cool. So AI comes to help the doctor, I wouldn't say do the job faster. Would you say that it actually helps them do the job faster? Or no, we are actually training the algorithms, not necessarily to help the doctor, but more to maybe try to make the algorithm a new doctor?
So Geoffrey Hinton is a famous AI researcher.
Yes. Nobel Prize winner, no?
Yes. I believe so.
Yeah.
So he argued some years ago, I'm not sure when it was, that radiologists would eventually be replaced by AI entirely. So he was saying, don't go into radiology right now. He's saying this to young people. It's a bad career choice. That hasn't turned out to be true. So yet, of course, yet. And part of the reason is because the job of radiologist is a multifaceted job, like so many jobs.
Yeah.
It's not just one task that comprises the job. There are multiple tasks.
Yeah.
And AI is as good as the human or better, perhaps, on some of those tasks, but then there are other tasks where the human still has an advantage. And so we haven't seen this sort of mass replacement of human radiologists yet. Again, I'm just talking about radiology, but I think that these sorts of lessons, I think it's just an example of some more general things, general points about replacement of humans and when AI can contribute. I mean, jobs in general are just, a given job's very complicated. There are lots of aspects to it. So an AI can help with some and help people leverage up with some of their tasks, but then other tasks, at least we're not yet there to the point where AI can completely take over. Now, in terms of where things go in the future, that's a further issue.
Yeah,
right?
and we want to explore that. But coming back today, right, where we are actually putting the basis of what we want AI to be in the future. where we want AI to help us, where we want AI to free our time, enhance our capabilities, bring more joy and fun, into the life, right? Because I think many of the things where AI is good are actually repetitive, boring jobs, right? So in that regard, I'm excited, about taking over, like giving away, the things where I'm not necessarily interacting with a person, I'm not having, this human interaction and relationships building. So today, when we're building that, what are we looking for when we're looking into the ethics? And I know we had a little bit of a discussion about what does ethics mean, right, when we discuss about AI. Walk us through a little bit, like where we should look. How did you end up looking into the things you're looking into? Like how, give me a shortcut, right, if I can, towards these are the things, these are the areas, these are the cases where there might be some issues, and this is how we need to look at it.
So the kinds of issues we should be concerned about, and that's what you're asking, and how ethics can help us, or how ethics is necessary, how ethics is relevant. I mean, there are lots of different issues with AI that are ethical in nature. There are also issues at different levels. So there are issues at a kind of a lower level. So we talk about, if we're going to talk about healthcare, we could bring it to that and we can broaden out later. But so, you have AIs that it's very hard to understand the process by which they transform inputs into outputs and generate how they generate their outputs. It's hard to understand that. This is called the black box problem, or problem of lack of transparency, different names for it.
Yeah.
But in the medical context, that can be a big ethical issue, because if you have a doctor using one of these opaque black box AIs, and the AI recommends some treatment for the patient, and the doctor consults the AI and says, "Oh, you recommend this for the patient, okay?" But the doctor doesn't know why, and so then the doctor says to the patient, "Hey, the AI thinks this would be the best treatment." And then the patient says, "Why?" And the doctor says, "I don't know."
But today we are in this situation where actually patients are consulting themselves, the AI
that's right.
going and
That's right.
like self-diagnosing,
That's right.
And going to the doctor and saying they actually know more than that. But I understand. So the black box, it's an issue of transparency. Like you don't know where it's coming from, and then I guess there it's also kind of a problem with maybe the historic, of the patient. Is the AI connecting that, right, with the history of the patient? Because the doctor can do that easily.
Yeah, sure.
Right? So the transparency here, this transparency issue actually ends up into a responsibility issue, a liability issue, right? If I am a patient and you're a doctor that consulted AI, you come and you give me a diagnosis or you prescribe me a medicine and then that's faulty, then who takes responsibility, right? And this is an easy case, I think, of responsibility, as we have already, let's say, the malpractice, cases of doctors. But it would be harder if you would have a different type of a role, like you be a teacher, and you do something that AI says, and okay, so transparency is one thing, the black box. What will be another thing, where ethics come into place?
Bias. So, these systems are trained on massive amounts of historical data. We want that data to be representative of the type of data we're going to be making predictions on. But it's very hard to get perfectly representative data.
Yeah.
And you can't look at the entire population in question. You have to have samples of data, and those samples can be biased and noisy in various ways. And so that can be a problem if you have an AI making biased predictions.
We know the cases of facial recognition algorithms where actually they couldn't recognize people of color. But I suppose in radiology we all kind of look the same. It doesn't matter where the color of the skin.
It's not as big an issue there. That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
But there are other visual recognition tasks where AI could be used in healthcare where it is a problem. So think about dermatology.
Yeah.
That's also a a visual recognition issue, just like in radiology. But in that, what they found in that case with some AIs is that they're not as accurate detecting abnormalities on people's skins when those people are of color.
Yeah. That's exactly what we're talking. So the bias is actually transferred, and the bias towards gender, towards ethnicity. I think it was also, long time spotted, by different organizations.
Yep. And we've been talking about this, sort of basically so far we've been talking about computer vision, at least as far as the radiology goes.
Yes.
But what about large language models? That's a different thing. There are also all sorts of biases that have been detected in the outputs of those models, the models that everyone is using now for all sorts of tasks. For example, bias, a sort of a Western bias, because a lot of the data that these things have been trained on is data from global North countries.
Yeah. Where we actually had discussions with the data team from Aramco. Well, maybe I shouldn't mention the names. I had discussions with a data team from the Middle East, where we had, the topic of, is their AI trained on Islamic values? Because there's one thing, if I'm a teenager and I'm asking, the model, the local model on questions that Islamic values will portray in a way then rather different than if you would ask, OpenAI, right, or Anthropic's models. So definitely there's also cultural bias. There's also religious bias that comes to surface in generative AI. And I think another thing that it's quite interesting now that we went into the generative AI is the manipulation of the model. The examples where I don't think you're right, hey, the joke with, hey, ChatGPT, my wife says like this, and then say, yes, your wife is right? So there is also manipulation, right, from the people's side. And I don't imagine how that would work when you have a doctor debating, with an AI, what the diagnosis should be, which could be probably interesting and more relevant, and where maybe our trust into, okay, the doctor was right, for the past years, we were trusting a doctor, but now AI that has so much data and can do the correlation so fast, has a different opinion, then who can manipulate who? Is the AI manipulating the doctor, or is the doctor manipulating the AI? So that is, I think, it's also an issue in the ethics part.
Yeah, manipulation is a big one. So the AI itself could perhaps be manipulative under certain circumstances. I'm actually, if we talk about large language models, I'm more concerned about the opposite, at least as the models currently work, which is that they're very sycophantic. So they confirm what you already believe.
Yeah.
So there's a real concern about confirmation bias.
Yes.
Just that, we've all worked with these, played with these models, or maybe used them very seriously, and we say, what do they say? And
Yes.
they say, that's a great idea. What a great question.
Yes.
This sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, they do push back on some things.
Yeah.
But they're very, very sycophantic.
Yeah. At the end, they want to please you, and then they will try to come up your alley, no?
Yeah. But as far as manipulation, there's also a concern if it doesn't have to necessarily be large language models. It can be manipulation in the sense that you have powerful predictive models, whether they're large language models or some other type of model. So they're very powerful. They're making accurate predictions about people. And the question is how those predictions are used by people. To send targeted advertisements, for example.
Yes.
Or to just, in all manner of ways, affect people's interests and beliefs and desires.
Yeah, even the stock market.
Even that.
Yeah.
So manipulation is a huge concern.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would like us to go a little bit back. I think you can definitely put a little bit of light into this idea of ethics, because we're talking about ethics. But what does the viewer understand, when we talk about ethics?
Well, I think the first thing to understand is that ethics is not something... We're all familiar with ethics. It's not a foreign thing. So the one thing I tell my students is, okay, we're going to be having ethical discussions in this class. So in my AI ethics class, we're
Yeah.
going to be talking about ethical issues with AI. We're going to be discussing these things. We're going to be having arguments about these issues. We're going to be giving and exchanging reasons about these issues. And some of them, I imagine some of them thinking, what are we doing? And what I tell them to try to put them at ease is that this is not an unfamiliar activity to you. I mean, if you've ever been
If you ever
around the
have
dinner
taken-
table, you're at the
yes.
dinner table and you're talking with your friends about some ethical issue that's come up in the news, and you argue about it. You try to give reasons. You say that's a bad idea for such and such reasons. That's essentially what we do in ethics. We just try to be very systematic about it. So we like to appeal to principles and theories. And you can kind of see this as a way of us ethicists trying to be systematic in the arguments that we give,
Yeah.
and the reasons that we provide for some conclusion.
We had, because I have a legal background, right? So from a legal perspective, ethics is seen somehow, right? It's actually taking the right decision, following the rule of law. Is this legal or is it illegal? If it's legal, it's probably ethical. If it's not legal, it's probably also unethical.
The
right?
probably is important there.
Yes,
Because
yes.
the two can come apart.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And this is where actually I wanted to bring the discussion, right? Because other people coming from a different background or being a little bit more religious, they see ethics differently. They see ethics as, does this abide to the moral law, that we have in the teachings, of the religion. So we had this discussion about, is there such thing as labeling, a person, or after a person, an algorithm? And actually, I would like for us after this to go a little bit towards the agents if we can. But you cannot label a person ethical or an algorithm ethical. You can only label a decision, an action, an activity as being ethical or not. Am I right?
Well, I think you.
Or like how?
Well, perhaps you can talk about people as being virtuous.
Okay, so that's a different definition of ethics, actually.
Well, so
In a way.
it is a certain way of thinking about ethics.
A way,
So there are
yes.
different traditions. So I mentioned earlier that there are different ethical theories,
Yeah.
different theories in ethics, and one of or you could even think about them as different traditions. And one of them is something called virtue ethics, where the object of analysis is people
Okay.
or agents, and whether they possess certain virtues or not. And then actions and decisions, what you were mentioning earlier,
Yeah.
those are analyzed kind of secondarily.
Okay.
So the way that we should act is we should do what a virtuous person would do. So the key concept is that of a virtuous person, and everything else is explained in terms of that. But there are other theories that don't really focus on virtue. They look directly at actions and decisions and say, okay, let's evaluate that directly, and then come up with some sort of criteria for deciding whether an action is ethically right or not. So these are different theories in ethics. Now, I guess it's an interesting question whether. So I mentioned that human agents can be virtuous or not virtuous, but I guess it's an interesting question whether AIs could
AI
be
agents.
virtuous. Didn't the CEO of Anthropic come out recently and say that their models were showing signs of stress?
Yes.
Okay, so when you hear stuff like that, you start to, I don't know whether we can ultimately make sense of that, but if we can, it starts to give you thoughts about, okay, do we actually have some sort of entity here that has its own interests and thoughts? And maybe we don't now, but in the future, we might very well.
Yes,
in which case, perhaps we could start talking about AIs as being virtuous or not. And so the virtue ethicist would say, hey, my theory applies here. It can be used to evaluate AIs directly.
Yeah, and this is taking us actually to this discussion of personhood, because once we start giving them this kind of attributes, then for sure, we are identifying them as something. And I wanted to bring the case of a recent study I came across where they've actually tested the multi-agent model, where they could see that in that setup, some agents would manipulate, the other agents to come to a conclusion. So in a single agent setup, the case was there was a doctor that had a patient and knew the patient was sick and knew that if the patient would, go outside in the society, it would infect other people. So the doctor decides to kill the patient so that he will not infect. Yes, he will not infect other people, right? So in a way, responsibility of the magnitude of getting a lot of more mortality than just one.
Mm-hmm.
So one agent says that the ethical dilemma is that the doctor should not kill the patient. So the doctor doesn't have the right, to kill the patient. In a multi-agent model, they manage to convince each other that, yes, the doctor should kill the patient. So it's very interesting, this aspect of it actually is like a community, right? Where we have people, and the person that has the more, presence and the more sway, the more persuasion, can actually convince the others to do something. Mm-hmm. And here it gets to my mind this movie, 12 Angry Men, where one person in a jury manages to convince everybody to change the verdict of a trial in US. It was So in these aspects, what can we do? And I mean, what do we need to look into? And what would be some type of actions where we can design in such a way, or think about so that we have something more ethical? I'm not saying that we're virtuous, more ethical, more virtuous, because it cannot be complete, because we don't know how to be completely ethical as humans. So it's very hard, I guess, to train something when we don't possess that.
You're assuming that the answer that the collective of AIs gave to the dilemma was the ethically incorrect answer.
Yes.
So right.
Yes.
So okay, fair enough. But just want to make sure. Okay.
Yes.
So.
Well, yeah, because considering that actually, if you would look today, from a legal perspective, the doctor is not allowed to kill the patient.
Right. You could. There are plenty of ethical arguments as well that would be the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess it's just a matter. It sounds like a quite technical issue to me of figuring out how that came about.
Yes, and that's definitely a programming, issue. But this is where I'm sitting and I'm thinking, not going, because I don't know about programming and I don't know how much you know about programming, but not going there. What is it that we could do, right? What is it that we...
Well, I think we should look at one thing we could do is look at successful cases of collective deliberation between people. There's actually tons of research on this. On the conditions that need to be met with a group of people for them to be able to deliberate effectively and to reach justified decisions. There's lots of information about that.
Yeah, interesting.
Partly in the literature on democracy. That's supposed to be the idea of democracy is sort of a deliberation between citizens to come to a common conclusion.
Yeah.
And there are certain conditions that need to be met for that to work properly. One of them is that people sort of think for themselves, at least initially.
Yes.
And that they're not swayed or manipulated by the person who has the biggest voice in the group. Because that sort of distorts, because then their insights are lost. And they just sort of go with the one person who is able to, wrestle them into believing something.
Yeah.
So that's not good.
No.
When it comes to collective deliberation. So if that's what's going on with the AIs, then that is also not good.
Yeah.
So we would expect in that case for the AI to be less accurate, not only on sort of general questions, but also ethical questions. So one thing to do is just to figure out ways to set up the interaction between the AIs in a way that we know would be fruitful based on our...
Yeah, and here we always hear about the human in the loop. right? And while the people running to achieve artificial general intelligence and artificial ASI, what is that called?
AGI,
No, AGI, but ASI,
ASI. No, I haven't heard of that.
super intelligence.
Oh, super intelligence.
And
Oh, yeah, sure.
artificial super
Okay, I've never heard of
intelligence.
ASI, but yeah, sure, sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to retake that because it's like, God damn it, one word. Okay, so the people looking, into achieving AGI, artificial general intelligence, and artificial super intelligent ASI, like the supreme thinkers, right, of what we think today, the super thinkers. For them, it's important to get fast there, and the way to achieve that is no human in the loop. What we were talking here about really understanding, did the AI take the right decision? We talk human in the loop, right? We talk that a human is supervising the final decisions or the process decision, either the decision process or the small outputs, that are coming in order to understand if AI was ethical or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how is this what you're recommending, that there's a human in the loop? Would this be one of the solutions for solving ethics?
Yeah, assuming the humans in the loop are themselves ethical, then that would help.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's also been a lot of work on trying to get AIs to themselves give us I guess this is kind of what you're talking about with your example, giving us solutions to ethical dilemmas. So not just behaving ethically, but actually producing outputs as if it were an ethicist and trying to solve ethical dilemmas. So training it on past ethical data, like ethical dilemmas with answers, and then having it be given a new dilemma it hasn't seen before, and then having it make a judgment. And so for something like that to work, I mean, you could imagine if that works really well, then we would have an ethical AI in a very important sense, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
We'd have a very wise, ethically wise AI trained on massive amounts of data. You can imagine it having looked at all the ethical textbooks and studied all the ethical revolutionaries throughout history and all that stuff. And then on the basis of that, it's connected certain dots, it's picked up on certain patterns, and so it's able to give very plausible solutions to actual moral dilemmas. I mean, you can imagine that working quite well.
Yeah, especially if you're also giving it some type of localization, right? Localization where you say, well, you are in Denmark, right? So now you need to judge this situation by what's acceptable here.
So, yeah, right.
Yes, and now you are in Saudi Arabia, I need to judge it like that, and then you are somewhere else, where you need to.
So I guess in a way, getting an AI that could do something like that would again be a big technical task of getting it really good ethical data.
Yeah.
And then hopefully the result of that would be an AI that could, potentially operate on its own to some extent. I mean, even the greatest philosophical and ethical minds that we've ever seen in history, they didn't operate entirely isolated.
No.
They would work. They would work
Yes.
in an isolated fashion
Yes.
often, but they would talk about things with colleagues. They would publish in journals that were peer reviewed, so other people would look at their work. So even the great ethical minds, who sometimes operated in isolation, would still interact. So I don't know. Yeah, in terms of AI, it's an interesting question in terms of this type of AI we're talking about, it's an interesting question of what it would be capable of.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you just think about the logic of machine learning, I mean, there's nothing that would rule that out entirely as a possibility. An AI that could actually make reliable judgments about ethical dilemmas.
Yeah. But where would that AI sit? Because the problems that we have today, the bias that is formulated in the AI algorithms, it's not entirely happening at the level of, first, not the reply that it gives to person interacting with it. So not, hey, what is the correct decision here? So not at this level where it replies. It would not solve it at the level of programming either. or would it? Because I think the problem is in the data.
Mm-hmm.
So if the problem is in the data, then we need to filter it before we get it into. But probably also at the development side, you need to have something in the algorithm that says you always need to refer back to the ethics check before you go further into output. Right? So first of all, we have biased data that creates unethical decision advice and actions. Because I would like to also get back to the actions of the use of AI, right? The ethics of use of AI. But then it's humans, right? Sitting on that level. So where would an ethical AI, chief ethical AI agent sit in order to make things better?
A chief ethical AI agent.
The AI you're talking, the supreme ethicist.
Well,
Where would the supreme ethicist have to act in order,
well, maybe just one thing I want to say before I get to that is just so people don't think I'm some sort of a nut. I mean, I think this would be very hard to develop. And if we think about a sort of like a supervised learning paradigm where we give the AI answers to various ethical questions, I mean, it's important to remember that a lot of ethical questions are the answers to those questions are very disputed.
yes.
And there are
still,
lots of
still.
there are lots of ethical dilemmas about which people disagree. So it's not. I mean, it's not as if if everyone agreed on what the ethical thing to do is and all sorts of dilemmas, then it would be easy, I suppose. But or easier. But that's not the way it is. So what kind of data are we giving to the AI in that in that sort of situation? So that's one thing. I just wanted to flag that. And then your question is about how could this AI be used?
Yeah, I'm talking of where, how to use it to give the best yield, right? So let's say we create this super, ethicist agent, AI agent, or
Well, I would think.
AI model
yeah.
that is all about ethics with all the training that you were talking.
Well, I still, it's hard for me to imagine us not having the need for human eyes to be on those outputs.
Yeah.
I mean, one reason for that is just the power of diversity. So,
Yes.
the more eyes you can have on something, where those eyes are people who have experienced different things and have different ideas, then the more likely you are to be able to pick up on potential errors in that thing that you're looking at.
Yeah.
So,
But we want this to make it fast. So we don't want, want to have judges, to decide on an idea that AI put out there. So what I'm thinking is that maybe it's a question, or where do you think it's the most ethical errors happening, or the power to change something in order to improve ethical output? Is it because we know in the data, there is already a lot of biases and unethical circumstances that algorithm is speaking on. So would it make sense to have this AI, ethical AI, filter the data that comes into training the algorithm and say, no, not this, because this is problematic. But again, he's taking decision by himself, right? Then would it make sense to have something and be like, well, you are a co-developer. You are developing with a developer in the algorithm, and you're coming all the time to test, the ethical veridicity, the ethical level, if I can say, the level of ethics, in this thing, right? And really red flag if it's something that is, really doesn't make sense in the use of it.
Yeah.
Would it be there, or would it be at the end of it where there is, I don't know, you using a model, we can take a professional one used in medicine, or we can take just a generative AI model where we say, okay, I'm asking you something. I need to write a paper about, something, and the patient-doctor relationship in, let's say the case, right? I need to write a paper about, is the doctor allowed to kill, the infected patient in order to prevent others to die? So I get an output from a model that we're using today on a daily basis. And then there's a button that says, activate ethical AI. And then ethical AI goes through whatever that was developed as it is today and then says, there's a problem what you're saying here, actually, because connection to whatever the cases, the disputes, the human, previous cases and procedure and moral norms and this is not correct.
That seems quite sensible to me, and I don't even think that requires the type of sort of futuristic, sort of ethical AI that we're ethical, the AI ethicists that we're talking about. I don't think it requires that. I mean, you can do that with current models.
Okay, so you give
and
them
they're
a prompt.
okay at it. But models in maybe 5 years will be much better, where they can just point out. So you're about to take some sort of a decision about some matter of ethical importance, and you want some additional feedback. You can also go to humans for additional feedback, but there you have the AI for additional feedback, and we can imagine, it's been trained on lots and lots of data.
Biased.
Potentially biased, sure, but
Yes.
this stuff that I was talking about earlier, all the great works of philosophy. Not to say that
Yes,
being a good
yes.
ethicist or thinking good about ethics is just a matter of studying
No,
that stuff.
No.
But you might think it's relevant for some of these ethical questions. So the AI has been trained on all that stuff, and you, the human, maybe you haven't read all the great works of philosophy, or
For sure.
so it could point out stuff to you that you weren't aware of. It could see certain connections that you didn't see. That seems to me a quite sensible idea, a way that it could add value.
Okay,
And that's not
just an extended prompt of, hey, you gave me this result. Can you put an ethical lens on it, or describe to me how would this make sense from an ethicist perspective?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I don't
something
see,
like that.
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
I don't see why that couldn't
so
be.
actually, what the listeners can take out of this, or the viewers, is when you're faced with a decision where you're using AI to help you in that decision, try to ask the ethical question. Try to ask, is this ethical? How would this, from an ethics perspective, look like?
I think that could be a perfectly good idea. So just as a way of reminding yourself, in some cases, that the issue that you're looking into might be an ethical issue, and you hadn't actually realized that, but it actually is. You might not have labeled it in your head as an ethical issue, but if you kind of consult the AI, it might make that clear to you that this is an important ethical issue. It's not just about you and your own interests. A lot of times when we make decisions, we're just thinking about ourselves and how things affect us. But maybe the decision will affect other people, then it becomes an ethical issue, definitely. The AI might key you into that.
Yeah.
And so it could heighten your ethical sensibilities, perhaps. And if you already know that the issue is an ethical one, that you have an ethical dilemma here you're trying to think through, you're not
Okay.
sure what to do, sure, you can talk to the AI and tell it what you're thinking, and say, do you have any additional input, anything I could be missing, any people who would be affected by my action that I haven't thought of.
Oh.
I mean, you could do all that stuff. But I think it's certainly with AI as it is now, you really need to be critical of the outputs. You can't turn your brain off. You have to be very critical, and not just mindlessly defer to what the AI says. That's a bad deal.
And how can you be critical? What do you do?
By trying really hard and reminding yourself how important it is to be critical. I don't know of any other way.
Okay. Like any concrete examples? I mean, like the idea is you get an output. What do you do then?
I mean, this idea about the need to remain critical and not mindlessly defer to the AI that I'm talking about, this actually came up with some of my work on radiology, and the idea of using the AI to work with the radiologist to read an image, diagnose an image. So there would be a concern if the radiologist who's diagnosing an image can also see what the AI has said is in that image. If they just have the AI right there, and they can just look anytime they want and see what the AI said, there's a concern that they might look at what the AI says and say, yeah, that seems right, and then just sort of mindlessly defer. So one guard against that is to have them read the image. When I say read, I just mean interpret the image. That's the
Yes.
radiologist language
Yes.
for interpretation,
Yes.
reading the image. You could have the human and the AI read images independently, so that the radiologist is sitting there and doing their thing, not even knowing what the AI is saying. And then the AI is over there doing its thing, not knowing what the radiologist is doing. So they independently give a certain judgment about whether there's, a tumor in this X-ray, whatever. And then after that, they compare notes.
Okay.
And then, so that's a way, it's kind of a setup that allows the radiologist it forces them to maintain their sort of what in Danish they call kritisk sans, their critical thinking.
Yeah.
Because they have to. That's part of the task. The step one of the task is for the human radiologist to do it themselves first, and then
Yes.
they can look at the AI, and maybe the AI has seen something they didn't, or maybe they're like, I'm pretty sure I'm right. That the AI is giving kind of weird result here, so I'm going to go with what I independently came up with first. So that's a kind of very basic sort of way of setting things up,
Yeah.
so as to fight against this tendency to mindlessly defer to the AI.
Yeah.
Now, how that works, if you have a large language model that you're sitting there working with, it's not that radiologist model doesn't carry over so well.
No.
So how do you maintain critical? I mean, yeah, that's a tough question.
I think some of the cases I've seen, there was a journalist, I think The Economist, maybe I'm wrong, but there was a journalist trying to see if he can manipulate AI in a sense of giving the results, giving the answers that he was expecting. So he chose a topic saying, okay, I want to invent something, and he invented a hot dog eating competition for tech journalists. And he wrote an article that he put on his blog where he put himself as the winner of a hot dog eating competition for tech journalists somewhere in the US. But the competition didn't exist yet, of course. He made it up, but gave it, like a title and a place, and a date. And then he wrote the article saying that he won, and then he asked permissions from other journalists to put their names in, so it would refer, and then he put just like some made-up names. He published the article on his Medium, and his on his blog, and then he went into AI and asked who is the best, the fastest hot dog eating tech journalist in the world, and he got the answer that he is the fast, and he was like, I just manipulated. I just created an article, and I put it there. And even if, the models are citing the source, right? Because right now they start citing the source, and you have there is a source, but there's no real veridicity, in this kind of stuff. And he just wanted to make it with a stupid example, right? So that would be no-brainer that something like this, would not be
that's
the
just
case.
that's just an example of wonky training data, problematic training data, isn't it? I mean, that's a constant concern.
I mean, if they're crawling the internet, right? Then
Yeah,
right. They are allowed to use the browsers or go into the browsers and pick that stuff. Then you can write whatever on the internet, because then they will just think
Untrue training data.
Yes.
Training data.
Yeah.
I mean, the hope is that if you have of course, among AI researchers, the hope is if you have the training data, if the data amount is big enough and diverse enough, which the idea is that the internet satisfies that,
Yes.
then these sort of errors will sort of cancel out. They'll sort of get washed out.
Yes.
And in a certain sense, they're onto something there, because so if I want to learn about some established scientific
True. Yeah.
issue, like I
Yes.
want to learn about Einstein's theories of relativity,
Yes.
I can go and it can explain that to me quite well, because
Yes.
it's seen so many examples
Exactly.
explaining that it's just picked up on the essence of that. But
on a new topic, and the newest topic is
but
AI.
yeah, exactly. But also the example you give, it's a very specific question.
Yes.
It's not asking about sort of established scientific knowledge or anything like that. It's a very
No.
specific factual question.
Yeah.
And on that kind of question, it can easily be misled.
Yeah.
The numbers aren't in your favor there, for where it sees enough good examples that sort of dominates. There's only one example, and the example is misleading.
Yes.
So that's an issue.
Yeah. But again, the critical thinking, right, and really asking yourself how if this is true or where it's coming from, or asking for proof, or asking for scientific research, around it. If it's the case for a topic, right?
But I mean, so you asked her earlier about how people can maintain a kind of critical stance toward these things. I think one of the best ways to do that is to actually use them, to use them,
Yes.
and to see where they
On
come
topic,
up short.
yeah,
On
and
topics
also
you know about.
Yes, exactly.
Topics you know about. So I've done this little exercise where I've taken some of my published articles and I've asked it to explain what the author had in mind. And it does an okay job, but sometimes it gets it a little wrong. And I know it's wrong because I know it was on my mind when I wrote the article. So that's an example of...
Yeah. So then do you correct them? Do you tell them, no, actually, this is what I had in mind? They will not remember that.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm not sure exactly what I did, but I could imagine myself doing that. and probably what it would say is, yes, okay, you're right. Because that's what it does.
Yeah.
It's, oh, I missed that. Sorry, you're right. Yeah. So there's the thing we were talking about earlier, kind of concerned about confirmation bias.
Yes.
And just
exactly.
excessively going along with the perspective and the ideas of the person who's inputting the prompt.
Yeah. Just need to please you. So they will, if you push a little bit back, they will just eventually get somewhere where...
I think that's a great exercise to maintain a critical sort of perspective on these things when you're using them. It's exactly what we just said. Asking it about things that you know a lot about and seeing where it comes up short, seeing where it's superficial, where its answers are superficial, maybe whether its answers are entirely wrong. And just in general, developing a kind of AI literacy. Of course, that's a nice buzzword. People talk about that a lot, but I mean, it really is important.
Yeah, the more you use them for like the different tasks and in different circumstances, the more you understand where they can help and also what the potential is, like the capabilities.
Right.
And again, a thing not to forget about is as well the fact OpenAI just published today a paper saying they will always hallucinate.
Yeah.
They will always hallucinate.
Right. You
Yeah.
can't get rid of this.
No.
Not with the current paradigm.
Exactly.
It's going to be there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So...
But so of course that's an issue, but I mean one theme I would want to get across to your listeners, viewers, is that when you think about what AI can and can't do and the ethical issues and the costs and the benefits of using an AI in a certain way, I think we should always keep a sort of a reference class in mind. So, okay, an AI is going to handle this task. Okay, well, sometimes it makes errors, sure. But how was that task being handled before? It was being handled by a human who also makes errors. So I think sometimes people can become too pessimistic about AI by failing to keep that reference class in mind. Yes. That humans... whether humans hallucinate in the sort of the sense of that word that applies to AI, I'm not sure, but humans certainly confabulate. We make stuff up all the time, even when we don't realize we're doing it. I mean,
memories, right? Like
memories are a great
answering our memories.
They're a great example of that. Memories are constructed. I mean, psychologists have made that have a lot of data on that.
Yeah,
and about how we confabulate. All the time, oftentimes to make ourselves look good to others.
I know this better because my dad is a hunter, so I hear the stories.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, we have lots of psychological flaws as humans as well, so we shouldn't lose sight of that fact when we're thinking about what an AI can do, what it can add, and the kind of costs of the AI.
No, but I think we are in this chase for perfection. And when you're talking right now, I had a reference, I think, of like childhood and the click of when you think your parents know everything, in the world and they are always right. And oh my God, and then you get to that age where you're like, no, they actually don't know everything. Yes. And oh yeah, they can be wrong, and and this, and then you're like, and I think maybe this was the expectation, that we would get with AI, where the know-it-all, would solve all the problems and we will be there. And of course, it's going to solve a lot of problems. But, that disappointment, so I think that's why we keep it so hard, on hallucination. And as well, I think we keep it that hard on hallucination because when we're planning to use it for curing diseases, solving math, science, physics problems, chemistry, then we want them to be right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And I mean, so maybe you'll know more about this than me, but it might be that the hallucinations are kind of unpredictable. So we don't know when it's going to hallucinate.
yeah.
Whereas with humans, maybe we have a little bit better idea of when a human might confabulate. So like if their self-interest is
It's
on the
because
line.
they look towards the left
Yeah,
or towards
yeah,
the
or
right,
that,
right?
yeah, that sure. There's little tells and those things, but also if there's a lot at stake for that person in terms of their job or something, then you could maybe expect them to adopt a viewpoint that sort of fits with them keeping their job as opposed to losing their job. So you can sort of pick up on these sort of clues maybe about when a human might not be trustworthy. But with an AI that hallucinates, to the extent the hallucinations are sort of random, just come out of nowhere, you don't really have those clues.
No.
So you have to just be constantly critical.
Yeah, very right on what you're saying there. But also, I would like to remind ourselves that AI already starting identifying flaws in theories, scientific theories that we had so far. Right, so humans were wrong, in stuff which was very scientifical, and right now we're trying to correct those, and I think development will be much better. So what I hear us going towards, and I think maybe this is where we can also draw a conclusion on the ethics part, right, of AI, is that we have to sustain a collaboration, right? We have to sustain a two-way. Tell me what's your view there. I feel like this is where we're going, but I want to hear this from you.
So it's sort of like in the human in the loop sort of idea.
Yeah, or this collaboration, right? Or co-creation.
Yeah. Well, certainly we need to keep the sort of collaboration between humans and AIs on specific tasks. Definitely when the human and the AI have different strengths and weaknesses in terms of carrying out that task. So this is something I emphasized in my work on, again, going back to the radiology stuff. The whole idea with bringing in the AI to assist the radiologist is that the radiologist and AI have different strengths and weaknesses when it comes to diagnosing images. So sometimes the AI is going to see something that the radiologist misses. Also, AIs don't get tired.
No.
Like radiologists do.
No.
And tiredness and fatigue can actually be a source of diagnostic error. But on the other hand, humans, radiologists, have certain advantages over AI. So an AI might look at an image and be confused by it because there's some weird thing in the image, which is actually the necklace or jewelry of the person who had that X-ray done of them. And the AI can be confused by that because it's never seen anything like that in its training data.
Yeah.
But a human immediately sees, they know from general context what that is. That's a necklace. I can ignore that. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
So different strengths and weaknesses for the human and AI. As long as that situation is present with respect to any task, we should keep the human in the loop. Now, of course, it takes time if you have a human in the loop.
Yeah.
So we'll have to do maybe a little bit of a weighing there of costs and benefits. Including the human in this sort of situation will make the judgment more accurate, but it'll also take more time. So how important is it to get the judgment right? Versus how important is it to save time? I mean, maybe we have a certain error rate that we can tolerate here, and we really want things to be fast. So we'll just let the AI do it, even knowing that we could do better in terms of performance, but we need to be fast.
Yeah.
So, but in general, as long as the human has something to add there, some sort of epistemic ability, it can see things that the AI can't see.
Epistemic ability means real life proof.
Epistemic just has to do with knowledge.
Yeah,
so
knowledge.
if the human can see something, can come to know something that the AI doesn't, the human has added value.
Yeah.
There. So that's a clear case of where we need a human in the loop. But it also seems, I think a lot of times when people talk about human in the loop, they don't mean just that. They mean we have an AI operating and that AI is making decisions that are affecting lots of people. We need a human, maybe not looking at comparing every single judgment.
No.
And saying, okay, what would I say?
Yeah.
But just being in control.
Yeah.
And monitoring how this system is affecting people.
Yeah.
That's another sense of human in the loop, which I think is, quite sensible.
Yeah.
These AIs, one thing we haven't talked about is that there could be actually very significant concerns of justice that are raised by these AIs. So in terms of, if you think about power, so knowledge is power, the ability to make accurate predictions about all sorts of things, including people, is power. Because once you have that knowledge, you can do things with it.
True.
To, as we were talking about, to manipulate people, to affect their beliefs, to affect their desires. This is a tremendous amount of power. And there's a concern that that power can be concentrated. So amongst the purveyors of AI, they're the ones sort of setting the agenda in society in important ways.
Yes.
This is a problem potentially of justice. This is a problem having to do with proper authority. Should there be some sort of democratic approval of this type of system, because it's having such profound effects across the society? Should we just let these private actors and the AIs that they employ to just operate with impunity, or should we see this as something that needs democratic approval in order for justice to be secured, and in order to prevent sort of inequalities in power between certain elite private actors and ordinary people?
Such a powerful topic, right? Especially that these days we have elections in Denmark, and luckily we live in a society where the regulators have decided that deepfakes are not allowed. You're not allowed to use somebody's face and image, voice. So I don't want to imagine how it would be to live in a society where deepfakes are like allowed and go through a campaign, or like the level of manipulation of that.
I don't think they'll be allowed. I mean, but it's a question of, okay, how do we prevent them? From, I mean, we already see that people care a great deal about whether the video that they're looking at on social media is real or not. So I mean,
even YouTube just like started penalizing a lot of not AI generated content, but like in a connection with in the connection to how fast you can automate the things to do, and you can do repetitive tasks.
Right,
So
and there's some concerns.
authenticity, it's becoming more valuable in the era of automation, fast automation.
Right, and we're seeing some problems with the U.S.-Iran war right now. Deep fakes, these videos are coming out depicting certain war activities that did not happen. And I believe
soldiers and bombs and like attacks.
And I believe that X has actually they've warned accounts to not put that information out, otherwise they'll be suspended. And if they violate 2 times, then they're completely off the platform. I think it's some sort of thing like that. And people, I mean, people clearly care a lot about whether what they're looking at is real or not. I mean, you can just see it. Just go, I don't know how on social media you are, but I'm on Twitter, or X, I should say. And people, you see some amazing video and you're like, wow. But then it's pretty clear it's AI if you think about it for a second. And you see the replies and people are like, oh, more AI slop. They're not interested anymore.
Actually, even I heard from people that even the young generation, doesn't want to see this kind of videos.
We care. Humans just care about what's real. I mean, just think about artwork. We want the genuine thing. Even we don't want something that just looks exactly like it. That's not good enough. We want the genuine thing, and we have certificates of authenticity and all these sorts of things.
I must admit, some AI music makes me happy. Some AI music actually sounds good. But
I'll actually say that some of the best rap music I've heard is AI generated. And I listen to it all the time, actually. But so
there might be some areas, where it's gonna get. But I agree that visually, actually, it's probably not the most appealing,
But I mean, people just really care about having the genuine article. That's absolutely clear, and so we need. And I'm not sure why, but it's clear that there's a systemic justification for caring about this, which is we want our information environment to be somewhat reliable. We don't want our information environment to be polluted.
No.
That way lies chaos.
Just want to be manipulated the old way, not the new way.
Not at scale in this sort of way.
Interesting. I would like to get sort of like a conclusion, like a summary, like something that my last question will be, if you think, if you're optimistic about AI, like if you think AI will bring big value to humanity or not. But before that, I want you to wrap up something like a summary in connection to ethics, in AI, and sort of like giving an advice to your dad. I don't know what your dad does, but somebody like that, right? Or my dad,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know what your dad. But something there, be like, okay, look, when it comes to AI and ethics, right? As a normal user, as a person like this is how you need to think. This is what you can do. This is what I would say to somebody that I meet the first time and opens a computer.
I would just one thing to say is that so when we talk about well-being and we talk about autonomy and freedom and these sorts of categories, these sorts of concepts, people care about these things. Almost everyone cares about having freedom. They value that. They value their life going well. They value their autonomy, being able to make decisions for themselves, not being manipulated, and so on. So if you value that, then you should think about how the use of AI can impact those values, not just for other people, but for you.
For yourself.
For you. So ethical issues are going to come up, not just sort of general ethical issues in some other part of the world, and we can talk about them sort of in a sort of philosophical or theoretical way, and they're not very real. No, these ethical issues that impact you can be very real with AI.
Yeah.
So think about them, be aware of them.
Yeah. There's a lot of scams, ethical issues in regards of there's a lot of scammers which are doing this, the fake voices, the imitation of the voices, right? People. And the advice that runs around, in the society is that every family should sit down and create a password, create a code word that only the family knows, just in case somebody calls to ask for money or ask for, different types of favors, accounts, details that otherwise wouldn't be. So we still have old people getting scammed by a fake Microsoft, employee, by a fake dating profile, in a thing. But it's going to be even more where, you have SMSs, right, going in. But AI is going to enable this even more. So in this respect, it's good for people to.
That's it. Yeah, that's an example of an issue that can affect you. So deception. We think of deception as ethically bad. It's not good. It's not nice to be deceived. It's ethically problematic for you or someone else to be deceived, typically. And so it's an ethical issue, exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and the injustice might happen to you, or you might enable injustice, or you might be exposed to a way of thinking that creates injustice.
You might freely give away your data or volunteer your data, and then it's used to train some sort of algorithm that makes sensitive predictions about other people and allows for certain manipulation of their behavior.
Yeah.
So that's just another example of so that's another thing. Think about how your data are being used. These things run on data.
Yeah.
They need good data. So think about how your data are being used to the extent that you can figure out what's going on. I know it's a difficult question.
Yeah.
Or difficult issue to investigate for the person who might not have any technical expertise.
Yeah.
But that's going to be a big issue in general. The use and the repurposing of data that was sort of given sort of freely, but then it's used in certain ways that the sort of the owner or the originator of the data wouldn't approve of, and that might be ethically problematic.
Yeah. The tagging.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking. Okay, cool. So Isaac, AI, is it gonna make the world a better place or not?
Oh, that I feel like that question's above my pay grade, but I'll say I am optimistic about a lot. And the history of human innovation, making things better, we come up with some amazing innovation, and then it creates problems. And then the task is to keep the innovation, but then solve the problems that it created. And if we can do that successfully, then we've got a nice innovation without too many downsides. So that would be my hope for AI, that we can do exactly that. So we introduce AI. We know that it has a lot of potential. We also know it has a ton of issues, ethical issues, other issues. If we can just find ways to address those, coming up with, governments finding ways to do it, people in the private sector finding ways to do it, coming up with ways to combat these things, then hopefully we can preserve the really good stuff about AI and sort of minimize the downsides. Of course, that's assuming that we don't get to a point where AI kills us all, because there are some people who think that that's what will happen. That's hard. I don't know if but I'm not too concerned about that myself.
No. And I think this is where a lot of people say that AI will solve the problems like, again, math, physics, chemistry, science. But I think what we need today is we need more people to come along so we can create the premises for the applications of the AI to happen only for the good of people, right?
Yeah.
So that we, again, manage to regulate, to guard, to design, and to wish for the things where AI actually brings a value, and it's not, and it's not getting a downside, right? The dark parts of what such a powerful tool would do.
This is a critical time as AI gets more powerful, and it's still kind of stupid in certain ways.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, it has the potential to do more harm now because it's sort of dumb in certain ways, and yet it's scaling up and being used a lot. Maybe future AI that isn't so dumb, we won't have some of the problems that we have with the current AI.
Yeah.
But in any case, we need to be thinking about how we can regulate this stuff. That's obvious.
Yeah. So more and more, we need to be part of really designing and creating the application and correcting, exactly as you say, correcting the things that it gets it wrong now, so it doesn't scale, on the wrong beliefs and the wrong values.
And thinking another ethical issue as well is. So we've talked about sort of the evaluation of actions and also the evaluations of people in terms of their character. Those are all ethical issues, like what's the right action or what type of person should I be? But also thinking of another ethical sort of question that's often asked is, what does the good life consist in? I think that's a really important question. As AI starts to take over more and more tasks, for a good deal of recent history, a lot of people have connected their own value with their ability to produce, their ability to have a job, their ability to, and that's actually been seen as part of the good life.
Yeah.
So contributing to society and so on. But when AI can do more of these things, and we don't need as much of a contribution from people, we might need to rethink what a good life consists in. What kind of life do we want for ourselves? We'll definitely need to share the wealth. To a significant extent, we'll have to find some way to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, thinking about, okay, what does a good life look like in with all this AI stuff going on? Not an easy question.
No, and I'm not picking too much on that, because then we go into and we can continue like this, forever, because we go into.
But it's just
is it the universal basic income the solution?
Sure,
is capitalism the good design and form for what is going to come? Can we, again, should we redesign what humans should do, where AI comes in, then, why do we want to live, for what do we want to live, how do we want to live?
Tons of issues there that, we don't have to go into them. I would just invite your viewers to just sit and think about it.
Yeah.
Like, what is a good life to me? And if they're younger, so thinking about, okay, in 40 years, if AI really does some of the stuff that people say that it'll be able to do, what will that look like?
40. Not.
I
would totally say 10.
Yeah, whatever the time. Yeah.
I don't want to say 5, but in 10, have an idea.
But yeah, just be sort of future oriented. I'm not sure the time horizon, but just future oriented and think, okay, what could my life look like here? Where could I? What kind of enjoyments could I have? What kind of value could I contribute? Is it a different kind of value, given that we have AI doing it, sort of some certain traditional stuff? So just think about that.
But I've tried to do this reflection myself, and I get always in a deadlock or dead end or in a blockage of. I'm thinking in the terms I know. And I think the terms we need to think for the future don't exist yet. Do you understand what I mean? Because I'm like, and
Yep.
I don't know if it's anybody like this that gets the same thing. Well, I want to think, I want to be innovative and I want to think differently about what is going to be important for me. But I only know how to think in the terms today. So
Yep. So there are definitely limits to the amount of reflection
Yeah.
that we can really do here that's going to be productive for us. I mean, just being actually in a certain situation just awakens you to certain things that you would have never thought of
yeah,
prior to
true,
that.
true,
That's
true,
absolutely true.
true.
But still, it can be useful to just think and try to
Yeah,
anticipate.
I feel like what I need a co-creation session. I need to talk to other people, right? And I know that out of that, we will probably reach to the same conclusions. We all care about our health. We all care about our family. Well-being means, to have what to eat, to have where to sleep, to live in peace, to breathe good air, and it takes me everything towards sustainability because that's, again, self-reliance. Everything takes, towards sustainability. But I know that a lot of people will agree with that, and there will be minor differentiations in between people that would like to travel more and people that would like to, I don't know, sleep more or have more fun, decide, what fun means. But again, I think the values that we learn as people have it's a limited number. And I think we will stay around those and we will stay around like what we know to do today. And maybe we don't need to go further than that, but we just need a different design, right, of what exists today and the way we name them and maybe actually how society functions. So I think then the next topic would also be democracy, to talk about that and starting maybe from discussing trust and see how trust is needed, where is needed, and a lot of this. But again, that is the feeling I have. The feeling I have is that I think we need people to come together and have these discussions. And I believe politicians also have a big responsibility to come and sit at that table because they are the one responsible to start implementing, that design. Else we face big social disruption, if people are suddenly left without jobs and they have nothing to do and no means to see themselves supporting after, I don't know, a year of unemployment benefits or something like that, then something needs to be in place, right?
Yeah,
and there's going to be pressure on.
We got to start thinking about it now, and the agenda setters need to be thinking about it now. So you mentioned politicians
Yeah.
as an example. So we need to the extent we can, think about what might be coming.
Yeah, but that's actually what we do at Life with Artificials. So we really try to reimagine how future will be, where robots will be around, where artificial intelligence is going to scale and it's going to take space, and as well where synthetic biology is also going to be maybe an enabler, of longevity and living long and healthy lives. And I know here we probably have another topic to touch upon.
Yeah.
So we are optimists. We are also sober optimists. We really encourage everybody to keep on the ethics side. We have to keep the values that we learned since we were little, that are governing our society, that are governing the way we interact with humans. We need to keep the same rules in governing artificial intelligence. Thank you very much for the participation.
Thanks for having me.